everybody. You're listening to the Comic Book Bears podcast. I'm Billy Z.
I'm Steve Morey.
And I'm Matt Broussard.
Yeah, you're hearing that right. There's only three of us on the mic tonight. Unfortunately, brother Justin has been having some ongoing problems health-wise that he's addressing tonight, and Brian is a little bit swamped with work, so it's just going to be the three of us tonight. There's also something else we need to tell you about tonight's episode. Last week, we recorded an interview with Steve Lytle, the artist of Legion of Superheroes and Justin Zane fame, and we had hoped to get that out this week, but we encountered a couple of technical issues in the editing process that it's taking me a bit more time to clean up than usual, so we're going to have that episode for you next week. So just consider this like a flip in the solicitations. You know, this was previously solicited as episode 85, now it's episode 86. So we are at episode 85. It's just a different 85 as we were anticipating, but we're going to come at you with some current comic talk, and we hope you enjoy it. And this is also about as close as we can get to a live show, because this is going out pretty much raw, pretty much unedited, and what we bang through tonight is what you're going to get tomorrow morning. So it's Super Wednesday in honor of last night's election caucuses. So Super Wednesday. Does that sound good? It doesn't sound that good. All right. So, where do you guys want to start? Do you want to start in the indie world or something mainstream? Let me throw it up to Matt. Matt, what book do you want to talk about first?
Okay, we might as well get Marvel out of the way, since I think we only read one book across three of us from Marvel. But it is a worthy book. It is The Unbeatable Squirrel Girl, number 5. It's funny because it took me a couple of pages to realize that they were making fun of Old Man Logan coming back to I don't know, regular Marvel continuity. So they introduced Old Lady Squirrel Girl, who is just as awesome as regular age Squirrel Girl. This is a time travel story where one of Squirrel Girl's college peers, and I can't even remember how he discovers it, but he finds out that he's got a ray gun that will make things disappear, and he experiments with using the ray gun on doing things like making garbage disappear, and then he realizes that the garbage is actually being transported to the 60s, and the ray gun is really actually a time machine. So he thinks he can raise his grades by making his fellow students in the class disappear if they have higher grades than him. So he shoots Squirrel Girl and sends her back to the 60s, where she fights Dr. Doom, and then Old Lady Squirrel Girl comes back to the 60s, and she's basically made the trip twice. So she's gone back to the 60s, aged to the present, then come back from the present to the 60s to try to help fix the time travel, shenanigans. It's super fun. Every single page, the writer, last name's North, forget the first name.
Brian.
Trying to find what text in this comic actually has the names of the creators. It's always such a dense read. But it's so funny. I mean, this is the only book where I'd actually read the synopsis for the current issue. They do a great job of just taking the trope of time travel and just exaggerating it so far so that there's all these redundancies and there's all these jokes, and it's such a great book after 2 years now of this creative team working on Squirrel Girl. They haven't lost their edge. The artwork looks amazing. It's really fun looking at a fight between Squirrel Girl and the Doom bots and Dr. Doom. There's just lots of fun costume details. There's lots of cute jokes about, bad dialogue coming from the Doom bots, like destroy all nerds. It's a really fun title. I'm glad that I'm still reading Squirrel Girl. It's one of the few Marvel titles that have survived my aggressive pull list cuts.
Matt, what are you down to with Marvel?
This, Lady Thor, I thing. Oh, Captain Marvel, which is really just an excuse to read Alpha Flight. I picked up the new Ultimate Spider-Man series, and I can't even remember what adjectives he gets now that he's part of the 616 universe. But I'm not sure I'm going to keep it. I like Sarah Pichelli's art, but the book doesn't feel very edgy. It's just a Spider-Man book. I do like the kid that is Ultimate Spider-Man. What's his name?
Miles Morales.
Yeah, Miles. I like him better than Peter Parker. He's got a more compelling story. I feel like I just know too much now about Peter Parker and too many different incarnations of his life. And Miles has a much more straightforward dynamic. You know, he's got the pressure of school. He's got weird stuff going on with his parents being alive, because I think his mother's supposed to be passed in the Ultimate series, and now with the transition to the 616 universe, there's things that have changed about his life. But it's close to not making it onto my pull list permanently. So
okay, Steve, what about you? What are you down to with your paring down of the monthly Marvel buys?
Well, I'm actually down to some of the stranger titles, and I think those are the ones with Marvel that really resonate with me. I did stick with the X-Men books, so I am still reading all new X-Men, all new Wolverine, Extraordinary X-Men, and God help me, Uncanny X-Men. But other than that, Weird World, Unbeatable Squirrel Girl, Silver Surfer, because I can't say no to Mike Allred. I just can't. I think the last one, probably Doctor Strange.
Okay.
That group of and Spider-Gwen too. So actually it's pared down somewhat, but not as much as I probably should.
Yeah.
You are spending a lot of money on those mediocre X-Men titles.
Yeah, and I'm part of me is thinking that Uncanny would be the next one to go, followed by Extraordinary. I like All New too much. I don't know what it is. I just like it. And All New Wolverine is actually fun.
Are you down with the crossovers? Are you looking forward to those? I think there's a couple coming up.
Oh, any crossover, any event this year for Marvel, I'm not even going to bother. That the upcoming Civil War 2, and I think there's something else.
No, I meant the
for the
X-Men.
Yeah. It's one of those things where I'll probably end up buying into the crossover just because I end up buying the issues that I normally buy.
Because you're already purchasing every X title?
Everything except for Old Man Logan. I'm not touching that one. I just don't care. Okay. Not enough. I don't care enough about old Wolverine. But yeah, you know, Silver Surfer to me is probably one of my favorites. That and Unbeatable Squirrel Girl, just because the artistic style is so out there. It's so different from a lot of the other books. You know, we talked about Hellcat, of course, also kind of being among that group of books that they're really trying to branch out. They're trying different types of art styles that are a little bit more, I'd say, all ages friendly or cartoonish. You know, I like that. I like that attempt with Marvel to kind of do that. I know that they've been doing that for basically for the past year and a half since Unbeatable Squirrel Girl really kind of kicked it off, I think. Which I guess kind of they got off of DC. I mean, once Babs Tarr started drawing Batgirl, it seemed Marvel had to respond with something in kind. So,
Steve, where's the serious sci-fi comic with Marvel right now? Because it feels like after Hickman's Avengers ended, there's a void. Like, where's the important stuff going on at Marvel?
I have no idea. It's
Yeah.
got to be, it's somewhere in the Avengers titles, but because you've got all of the individual characters kind of going off doing their own things very, very directly and trying to be all crazy about it, like Iron Man and Spider-Man, and everybody's kind of out of their element now. I don't know what they're doing. And, in the galactic stuff, the cosmic Marvel stuff, I'm just not feeling it. Star-Lord is interesting, but it's basically bringing the origin of Star-Lord. The first 4 issues spent the entire time bringing the origin of Star-Lord more in line with the movie universe version. And Guardians of the Galaxy, Guardians of Infinity, just not interested. I'm not feeling those titles at all.
What's the title with Night Mask and it's a duo title?
Night Mask and Starbrand?
Is that what it is? Or reverse,
That sounds
maybe?
right.
Yeah, I imagine that might take up some of the serious cosmic.
No, I think it's I haven't read it, but
I haven't either. Yeah.
It's more of like a buddy. It's just sort of like a teen buddy comedy kind of thing. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I mean, it's the version of Starbrand that was brought back into the Marvel universe, but I don't know. It doesn't seem to be doing very well anyway.
Yeah. All right, so I am down to Hercules, Squadron Supreme, and Scarlet Witch, and that is because of the writer, not necessarily the conceits of the book. Spider-Gwen, Amazing Spider-Man, but I don't know how much longer I'm going to be holding on to that. I've been on the slot ride for a long time. I think out of all the incarnations, this is the one that's working out the least best. And I had totally forgot to pre-order Patsy Walker Hellcat, and I have 2 and 3 on back order. So I guess you could say that those are also included. But I'm down to very little Marvel as well. I bailed on all the Bendis books. Iron Man wasn't doing it for me. This reboot of Guardians wasn't doing it for me. I didn't even touch Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's just there's nothing that's really holding my interest right now.
No.
I just think I'm mentally preparing myself and clearing my pull list for the new DC titles in the hopes, and again, just with my fresh-faced eyes from 2011 going in and picking out the books from the New 52 relaunch. I think I'm going to be doing the same thing here with the Rebirth relaunches. Mm-hmm. Just kind of like horribly optimistic, this has got to work out kind of, feeling with those.
Well, I do have to say with the Rebirth, since there have been some very public comments about Titan's Hunt being more or less the type of vibe that a number of the books are going to have, I'm optimistic on that front. But
is it because the vibe itself is more through DC, I guess?
I guess. It's I'm interested to see when they get to excuse me, I'm trying to suppress a burp here. When they get to WonderCon, if they effectively apologize, I'm really wondering if they're going to say, we tried something, sorry folks, it didn't all work out. Because you think of New 52, and I think as time goes on, you're only going to see 2 runs out of everything that happened. And I do think there were these wonderful little books like Dial H that should have had some more legs to them. Mm-hmm. But I think as time is going to move on, the only series that are going to be viewed in classic light are Snyder's Batman and the Azzarello Wonder Woman.
Whoa. Hey,
seriously.
The Morrison Action Comics is amazing. I bought that shit in a hardcover. Okay. And the Snyder and Lemire Animal Man Swamp Thing crossover stuff, that's amazing stuff.
Okay. Well, not even the crossovers, not just the crossover stuff. I'm going to go on and say the entire run of Swamp Thing with maybe some rocky bits towards the end, right when Charles Soule was finding his footing. But the entirety of Lemire's Animal Man.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sure.
Now, some of that, like I
Amazing.
prefaced it with my saying that I don't necessarily agree that that's going to be that should be the case.
Right.
There were things I really liked. I loved Justice League United when it started. Matt, I agree with you on some bits of Animal Man. I thought Animal Man up to Rot World was wonderful, and after Rot World was wonderful. Rot World was not a successful crossover.
Hey, as far as like dreadful dystopian futures go for DC Universe, I thought Spider Robot Wonder Woman was, it was an interesting touch.
Yeah.
Well, and just the fact when they were leading up to it, how all of their all the human zombies were just basically people whose necks had been twisted completely around. It's just an image that you do not get out of your head.
And as much as go ahead, because I just
I think a lot of that was Paquette, with
Sure.
Paquette's art. It was amazing.
Well, and Travel Foreman did some
God.
pretty gross looking artwork on that stretch.
Oh, with anything with the those creatures from the Rotten Animal Man that were after him in the first couple of arcs. Oh my God, oof. Deliver Me from John Carpenter's The Thing. Some of that stuff is nightmare fuel.
And I have to say, for me, as the series progressed, I thought there were a lot of flaws in Morrison's Action Comics because for the first time ever reading him, I felt like he was making it up as we went along.
Yeah, but that one issue with the Superman's dog and the Phantom Zone, that just makes the whole thing work for me.
Okay, that's an awesome episode.
Yeah.
You're a good dog, Crypto.
Yeah.
As he's pulling and his hind legs are still being pulled into. Crypto. I love Crypto in any form.
I do want to completely forget the multiversal corporate. We're gonna destroy Superman by making him a product thing. That storyline didn't work for me, but most of the rest did.
All right. Well, I'll talk a little bit about DC a little later because that's all I'm really caught up on. I have so many books to read. But Steve, you're a little bit more ahead on the reading pile than I am, so throw out a book that you read.
A book that I read, does it have to be DC?
No.
Okay.
We'll tackle DC later.
Okay. Well, how about I just I'll talk about these two together, just because when I originally talked about them, I talked about them together. Back several months ago, some people might remember that I decided to have a geeky fanboy meltdown over Magical Girl books. And, I continued, of course, reading, keeping up with them, and two in particular, Zodiac Starforce and a very kind of, I guess you could loosely call it a Magical Girl book, Toil and Trouble. I kept up with them, continued with them, and now both of them have finally ended. Zodiac Starforce had a bit of a delay for their fourth issue, and that finally came out a couple weeks ago. And then Toil and Trouble as well, which is the story of Macbeth from the perspective of the three witches. Very fantastic. The interesting thing is both of these books are probably not exactly something that would really jump out for people who do read the lines from their respective publishers. So like Zodiac Starforce came out from Dark Horse, which primarily makes a lot of its gets a lot of its readers through the Magnolaverse stuff, or through the more horror oriented or the the license oriented stuff. This was a wholly original book from the creator Kevin Panetta and the artist Paulina Ganucho. I think I'm pronouncing that right. But it's fantastic. Zodiac Starforce, I have to say, for anybody who's read it, and I don't know, Bill or Matt, if either of you have had a chance to look at it, but now that it's finally complete, you can get the collected trade. But if you've ever watched any of Sailor Moon or any of Magic Knight Rayearth back in the early days of 1990s anime that actually made it to North America, I mean, it really really brings back that nostalgia. But it's good because it takes place. It essentially brings you to these girls after, they've beaten the big bad. What do they do when they're just normal students who are trying to get it, trying to make it through school, and then something horrible happens and like a dark specter from their past makes another appearance and causes them to lose faith in themselves and each other. And I think this book really is just, it's fantastic. The art is beautiful. The colors are fantastic. And the characters are great. And of course, this is another book that doesn't shy away from LGBTQ characters, but doesn't push them at you in a way that feels pandering. Where one of the girls, and I'm not going to spoil it, just in case people are still haven't read it. One of the girls is in love with another character who's just basically been taken over by this dark evil force that's been affecting the school. And through her love and the revealing of her feelings, she's able to save her, and not only that, but also bring her into the fold and make her part of the team, which is really, it's just fantastic. It takes those messages of love and hope that Sailor Moon and other type of shows like that were known for, and modernizes it. And Toil and Trouble, and again, stop me if I'm blabbering. Toil and Trouble is just, if you grew up in and around the drama kids, Macbeth is such a major play to do. The Scottish play it's such a major part of dramatic history. It's still very popular. You have that long running show in New York. What's it called? Sleep No More. Bill, have you ever seen that?
No, but I know what you're talking about.
Okay, well, there's a show in New York, I believe it's in Brooklyn, where it's kind of a free-form performance where all of the audience walks around following whatever part of the story that they want to see more of. They follow those actors throughout this sort of house, this townhouse, and watch them sort of go about their business, performing the parts of the play together, but also performing their characters' own quirks and their own activities outside of what Shakespeare showed us. And Toil and Trouble reminds me of that very much, where instead of following the other characters, you're following the witches, who turn out to be the spirits of the old spirits of Scotland, basically, and the games that they're playing and what effect they had on the characters of Macbeth. And by seeing that, you kind of get a little bit more. And this book is extremely emotional for me, not just because I love the play, but just because I think Margaret Scott, who's the writer, and the artist Kelly Nicole Matthews, both of them really capture a great feel. The book kind of puts you in a place where you expect it to be a little bit less visceral than it is, because the art is somewhat cartoonish. It's put out by Archaea, which is known for the Fraggle Rock, recent Fraggle Rock series, the Jim Henson Storyteller series, a lot of the Henson titles, and it has kind of a similar appearance in the feel, but the matter of the book is extremely, I would say classic English literature. And it really has a wonderful representation of these characters that you don't really see too much, and you don't know too much about from the original play, but you see through, at least Sir Margaret Scott's retelling of it, how integral they are into the characters themselves and the characters' actions and what they do. So that, again, it's a 6-part series, just finished up a few weeks ago, and should be available soon in trade paperback. Although it's Archaea, so it'll probably come out in hardcover as well, and I'm sure it'll be a beautiful, very premium edition that's worth every penny.
Okay, going back to the series that you talked about before, I did give you the heads up on another castle coming out from Oni, right?
Yeah, and I'm
totally in
looking
that
for
wheelhouse.
that.
Okay,
And that's
cool.
who is that written by?
Andrew Wheeler
Yes,
with
that's
art
right.
by Paulina Ganichow.
Yeah, it's the same artist
Oh,
as Zodiac Starforce. Yep.
Yep.
And if, honestly, again, for anybody who's listening, if you liked Paulina's art from Zodiac Starforce, I really recommend that you continue following her stuff, because I think she's an artist to watch out for. And hopefully, she expands a little bit more gets noticed for a lot more books.
Okay. Matt, how about you? What's another book you're reading?
Well, the highlight of my week was Bloodshot Reborn number 11. This is the second part of the very much like Old Man Logan, but done in the Valiant universe storyline, where Bloodshot is sort of at the end of his ability to protect the group of people that he lives with. Are sort of farmers that are out of water and food outside of this super wealthy and high-tech city structure that I think has replaced Los Angeles. Anyways, in part 2 of The Analog Man, we sort of get a chance to see what is going on with the antagonist in the story. There is no sign of some of the familiar Valiant heroes this far into the future, but there are traces of their legacy. Exo Manowar has become this sort of weird, evil, sentient AI police force. There's a fight between Exo Manowar's patrol that's flying through the city and what's left of Harbinger. It's very cool. It's very Mad Max. It's very Old Man Logan. It looks great. It's aggressive. And it's just relevant enough to what's going on in Bloodshot Reborn that I feel like it's justified to do this story. They have some great little moments where we flash back to when Ray and Magic are sort of settling down following the events in the first storyline, and it's clever what they're doing. I'm totally digging this title after 11 issues. It's really consistent.
Steve, are you on the Bloodshot Reborn train still, or?
Oh yeah. I haven't read the next part. I've only read that first part. I think Matt, the name Bloodshot Mad Max is just perfect, or Bloodshot Fury Road. I mean, it's you really get that dystopian sort of, at least in the first part, that definite George Wilson style, dusty.
George Miller?
Yeah, George Miller, not George Wilson. George Miller, crazed gangs of desert roamers, kind of feel. I thought it's really fantastic, and I'm really excited to see where it goes, and I definitely need to read the next part. And I think is the third part, is that coming out next week?
Oh, maybe. I mean, when the release schedule isn't monthly, I don't know when to expect things, because it sort of paused a little bit and then bang, bang, bang.
Yeah.
I also want to mention that Luis LaRosa draws Bloodshot as such a enormous beefcake. I just kind of want to lick some of these pages. He's just like these rippling muscles on muscles, and he's sort of like, I mean, he's weathered and he's rough and he's been taken down a notch by his horrible and traumatic experiences. So I don't know. He draws an amazing looking Bloodshot.
Now, how one of the interesting things that I've always felt about Bloodshot is that I always kind of equated him to a Valiant version of the Punisher. And for years, I kind of resisted reading anything Bloodshot. So, like the original Valiant runs, never cared to read it. Never picked up a Bloodshot book.
Right.
But with Bloodshot Reborn and with his with the crossover they had with Harbinger back in the Harbinger Wars, which I think was like the first major event that Valiant did, I started realizing that this is not the Bloodshot that I thought, and it really pushed me to think of the character very differently from a Frank Castle. Whereas Frank Castle is just vengeance, he's blinded by his anger and his, his disgust for criminals wherever he finds them. Bloodshot himself is he's a tragic figure where, he's almost compelled to, or at least previously he was compelled to kill, and, the nanites pretty much controlled him or helped control him. And since he got, I guess free of that through some of the actions of other characters throughout the run, I think the Valiant was where he really was able to kind of free himself. Watching his growth in Bloodshot Reborn is just it's great storytelling, is what it is.
Yeah, he's sort of like a more compelling Universal Soldier.
Yeah, where you really feel his regret, his reluctance to give in to what the nanites can do. At least in the future, he seems to be able to control them very well. After what had happened in the first major story arc from Bloodshot Reborn, that first, I think it was like 8-9 issue arc. But I mean, you just really there's a much more nuanced figure in there than just somebody who can fire guns and not die.
Have you fellas seen the solicits for 4001 AD?
Yep.
Yep. Yep.
So I'm seeing here, and is this the first time Tula Lote is doing any Valiant work?
I want to say
so.
yes.
With the covers? Okay.
Yeah.
And again, I'm starting to dip my foot in the Valiant universe, and I do have the first 3 issues of A&A pre-ordered.
Nice.
So we'll maybe at some point I'll be able to join in with you gentlemen on some of the Valiant talk, because I did like Book of Death. I have Faith #1 next up in the reading here, and sounds like there's a lot of exciting things going on there.
Yeah, it's very much, and I know this is something that Valiant likes to put as a tagline, but it's a very unified universe. It really does tell a single compelling story with multiple perspectives and parts that are just fun to read.
Okay, now as prep for this, I downloaded all of the Valiant comics that I have on the Comixology platform earlier this morning. And one of the books is the Rye number 0.
I haven't read those.
Okay. And it was a really surprising book. This is a 0 issue, and Rye is nowhere to be found except for the last panel of the book. It's all the other characters, including at that time Solar and Magnus. And I was just wondering, were you guys Valiant readers back in the 90s?
I was.
Yeah.
Mostly Harbinger, though.
Mm-hmm.
I was more of a Harbinger person than, Magnus or Solar, Man of the Atom, or Unity, not really. But what was funny is that I do remember semi-fondly Deathmatch, which was the crossover with Image.
Right.
Which was a bizarre money grab. I don't know how that got greenlit. But.
And that was one of the first examples of the ridiculous delays, right?
Oh,
God,
yeah.
yes.
That was like crazy, right?
God, yeah. Well,
I think I'm still waiting for the last issue of Deathmatch.
I also have to say there was something so appropriate when Image United had the initial delays, and it's like they just forgot about it.
Yeah.
I mean, it seemed like way too ambitious with, the original creators drawing their characters, but there was something just so beautifully appropriate of that second issue getting delayed like crazy, and then it's just evaporating.
Mm-hmm.
Deathmatch was like, or Deathmate was Deathmate was like watching one of those team challenges on Top Chef where they just don't get along and then they make nothing but bad dishes, and the judges are all like scrunchy face and spitting the food out in a napkin. That's what it was like to be a Valiant and or Image fan when those comics came out. It was just like, read it, then spit it out on a napkin.
And that was with Solar and Void falling in love too? Was that an element? Oh, yeah, all right.
If you derive that much story from the sparse narrative that was going on there, then you're ahead of most people. All I remember was just the clash of like Silvestri and Jim Lee and whichever artists were employed at Valiant at the time. Probably like Barry Windsor Smith. And,
Barry Windsor Smith was on every book. It felt like
Don Perlin.
Yep.
Yeah.
Sure.
Well, and the thing with Deathmate too is that I think they came up with the idea for the covers before they came up with the idea for the interiors. Yep. So like we want to have like a foil cover, and we want it to be sort of a premium format book, but they just didn't know what kind of story to tell, so they just kind of it was as hacky as you could possibly think of.
And
I think they came up with the card that goes in the bag before they came up with the story.
Oh God, yeah.
And they were not numbered issues; they were colored issues.
Yes.
Right? Yeah, so
I forgot about that.
Yeah, like green, and blue, and black, and
it's a good thing some of the stuff didn't catch on. Yeah.
I think I only have 3. I've got the black, yellow, and blue.
I ended up getting everything because I won it's a couple at this point, God, it must be like 10 years ago on eBay. It was like one of those things like somebody must have gotten really mad at Liefeld. So I got like everything from whatever you want to call the Awesome Extreme Universe.
Okay.
Including the Deathmate books. And I won them and it was like $30. And it was like every book, and I got the Supreme statue, I got the Badrock statue, I got all these figures, I got the Prophet figure, and I think I was like $35. And like the box was like, it was like a TV came to my house. The box was so huge. I really do think he may have spent as much on the postage as what the books were valued. Right. And, I just had that feeling like, okay, I hate Rob Liefeld now. You get everything. So, and that was all because I liked Supreme by Alan Moore. And whoa, this stuff isn't like Supreme by Alan Moore. Oh, so yeah, I filled in some 90s gaps there in a very strange way. Okay, so we got into Valiant. That was from Matt's Bloodshot. So, Steve, what else are you reading?
I am also reading from Valiant, actually. Someone who we've interviewed on this show before, Sean Lewis, about his book series Saints. Okay. And I've been keeping up with this one. I've been really enjoying it. The art, of course, Benjamin Mackey. Very interesting. There's a bit of a, I'm not sure what to describe it at. Matt, I'm not sure are you reading this book?
No, but I'm glad that you reminded me because I was intrigued by the premise of Saints when we interviewed Sean, and I want to check it out.
Yeah, I'm really enjoying it because it is a great premise, and unfortunately, the way that my store had been getting them, I kind of, I got issue number 1, and then I had to dig around for issue number 2 and 3. So there's a really long gap between me reading the different issues. But it's compelling. The characters are funny. Like I didn't realize, talking with Sean, of course, there's a lot of great mythology he was talking about with the, Catholic saints and the mythology, if you want to say that, about what each saint represented and which how he could play with that their death or their whatever they're representing to sort of create a kind of a superpower that would associate with them. But I didn't realize how funny this was. The characters really they're all sarcastic. And they ran into, in issue number 4, one of the characters actually is friends with a death metal band, and also a speed metal band apparently. And there's a gay couple who is part of the black metal band. They've been summoning demons and just being randomly crude and crazy metalheads, and they end up joining up with them towards issue number 5. They follow them out to the desert, and they also invite yet another giant speed metal band, and it is fun. The imagery is wild. It's crazy. It's over the top. Issue number 5, which is the latest issue that I've read, kind of gives you a little bit more background. Lewis flushes out, where these saints are coming from, how they got together. That this group of saints is actually one of the last groups of saints that have been revived and brought out, because there's a society apparently that's been, catching them and either killing them or sort of brainwashing them to be part of their group for some nefarious reasons. So it's just a fun read. But I do honestly recommend that you try to read them together, because any kind of gap, as I found, you can easily get lost. So, Sean Lewis and Ben Mackey, Saints.
Yeah, so I've read up to the first 3 issues. I think I have up to 4.
Mm-hmm.
And I imagine the first trade's probably going to be out fairly soon.
It's gotta.
Yeah.
And if you're one of those people who waits for the trade, this is definitely a good one to read in one sitting, as a trade. I think that I think it really helps with the flow of the story, because the way that I've been reading it with fits and starts, it's just it's tough to follow. You kind of have to go back and reread. Oh, what happened last issue?
Okay.
So.
All right. I'm going to talk about some of the books that I read, and everything I read recently was DC, just because I'm trying to get caught up. It's so, oh my God, this to read pile is so big, and I'm not helping matters, going through the Diamond catalog, ooh, that looks interesting. Ooh, it's just crazy.
Dangerous.
But over the last couple of weeks with DC, it was Neal Adams month, where many of the books had Neal Adams variant covers, and we also had the first issue of Neal's new series that he is writing and drawing, The Coming of the Supermen. Now, I'm older than you guys by a decade, right? About, basically, yeah, maybe 12 years older, 10 years older than you fellas. And I was wondering, what is your perception of Neal Adams? Because when I was growing up, there was a quote ascribed to Neal Adams himself. I think somebody else actually said it, but it was, if superheroes really existed, they would look the way Neal Adams drew them. So when I was growing up as a little kid, he was the premier artist, hands down, of people that were still active and not past their prime artistically, like Jack Kirby with the clunky anatomy and all of those issues. So his was a really big name, and I'm just wondering what your perceptions of Neal Adams are, or do you even care?
He's done some of the most recognizable covers that I like for Batman and Superman. So he has an amazing sense of iconography. In terms of his facial feature modeling and his the sort of the realistic versus cartoony debate for superheroes, I think his look really works for times when the Batman comics aligned well with sort of adult horror / comic book readership. And I like him handling certain characters like Green Arrow, but his style doesn't work for everything, and I think as illustration, or I should say printing techniques changed, I found that he kind of got left behind a little bit in terms of the modern look of comics in the 90s. Mm-hmm. And I felt like when I saw his stuff, it sort of didn't fit a lot of the projects that he worked on in the 90s, but 80s comics, especially comics with a little bit of a horror flavor, amazing. So effective with the printing techniques then. I definitely pine after some of those Batman comics that he did. Yeah, that's my take on Neal Adams.
Mm-hmm. How about you, Steve?
Ugh. Yeah, I mean, what Matt said, he's responsible for a lot of iconic imagery. I associate him very strongly. I guess with the mid to late '80s, early '90s.
See, that's really interesting for me because I feel his last gasp as a very talented interior artist was in a very strange project, which was Superman versus Muhammad Ali.
Huh.
That is an exquisite book artistically. It's one of those books, it's much better than it needs to be. I mean, the fight scenes where you have Superman under a red sun, so it's literally a boxing match between a depowered Superman and Muhammad Ali, is some of the best choreography you'll ever see in any comic book. And there
Hmm.
was something about that project that once it was done, because it was such a big thing. I mean, it was delayed like 2 years because they were trying to get the story right. And the story actually isn't bad for a 70s cosmic influence comic. With, how the hell do you get Muhammad Ali into this story? Um, there was something about that story that once that was finished, and there wasn't anything that was nearly as interesting as that book. That he was associated with. Again, a lot of it was his own character own stuff that he concentrated on, like Ms. Mystic and you
Hmm.
know these properties that really didn't take over the world. I understand with what you're saying there, Matt, that by the time that the market had gotten more creator-owned friendly and mass books with Image, he was left behind. His style didn't fit at that point. I've never thought about the printing techniques. So now I'm thinking, well, yeah, maybe he worked so well because he was literally a four-color artist. Maybe that was the way that he was thinking because, I don't want to necessarily bring color technique, but there are different practices these days that couldn't have worked, because of printing process at the time that he was active.
You
Um,
were reading that the Superman come, what is it?
the Coming of the Superman.
Coming of the Superman.
Superman come. Okay.
All I remembered was my dirty joke. So, all the Supermen come. No, so the cover of that is really my case in point. Is that his illustration styles may be too beautiful in black and white to
Hmm.
look right with a lot of bright coloring. The cover for that Coming of the Superman, it's like the color is fighting for attention, and I almost want to see that cover in black and white. I
Yeah.
mean, like, this is an incredible illustrator who could draw circles around me, and there's no shortcomings to his style, but I feel like in the hands of modern colorists, they tend to make his work look like way too crazy and vibrant, and because he's already got a lot of really exquisite lighting structured into his shadows, and yeah, I don't know. There's a bit of a conflict I find with the way that his stuff is colored these days.
Hmm. And I think this might be a case of a creator having a little bit too much control and a little too much, um, not enough interaction with others, because he's not a writer. And the Coming of the Superman proves that. Not necessarily just in terms of dialogue, but the pace of the book is so uneven. It goes at 100 miles per hour, and then it goes to molasses pace for about 7, 8 pages. Uh, Long story short, this is his take on Superman's interaction with the new gods. There's a very interesting twist with Darkseid at the end, which I thought, well, this might be leading to something. But Neal's most recent DC work was Batman Odyssey, and that shit's batshit crazy. I mean, that was the Frank Miller, Jim Lee, I'm the goddamn Batman in another context, with so many dialogue balloons, which amazes me because he's an artist, that he would fill the page with so much dialogue, almost to prove that he can do the job. Uh, so I love Superman. I love Neal Adams. I'm in for 6 issues. But man, if this was an ongoing, this would be a tough haul. Um, just commenting on some of the other covers, one thing I really did like about Neal Adams cover month was that he was tackling a number of characters like Starfire and Telos and Deathstroke that he never had the opportunity to draw before. A lot of the covers were homages to some of his famous. Sorry, folks, we're not in this one. Some of his famous covers of the past. Some were a little more ingenious than others. Actually, the one I liked the most was that iconic vision of Batman running from an early tabloid in 1973 to 1973 was it when you had the tabloid set comics, and there's just very iconic image of Batman running. He recast it as Superman. And I think just something simple like that, with the way that his foot is doing damage to the earth as he's running, I thought there were some things that were really clever, and then others just didn't work as well. And in the in addressing the covers, something I also found really interesting that you said, Matt, was you thought about the color fighting, and you would almost be more interested in seeing it in black and white. If you go to the previews that solicited the books, you'll see a lot of the rough pencils that he did, and you can totally see where you're right on the money there. There's a vibrancy to a lot of the black and white images that you don't have in the color for some reason. And I think it's because the color is throwing it off in some way. As to some of the other books themselves, I got caught up on Superman, running through Action, Superman, Batman, Superman, and Superman Wonder Woman, as well as the ancillary title, but soon to be tied in, Superman Lois and Clark. We're in the middle of, actually we're kind of in the home stretch of the Savage Dawn story arc, which is presenting Vandal Savage as a worthy adversary of Superman, and actually the force behind the scenes in a lot of the action since Superman was depowered. In a sense, he's now repowered in a really crazy way of Krypton chemotherapy. It doesn't make sense, but it's there. And one thing I get really frustrated is that Vandal Savage is the most inconsistently drawn character in the DC universe. The proportions just vary so greatly from artist to artist. But there's a gentleman who is named Jack Herbert, who has just done one-offs here and there, and he drew Superman 49, and man, his Vandal Savage is fucking hot. So I was appreciating that. I also got through Batman number 49, which is wrapping up a lot of the threads to Snyder's run on Batman. This issue was actually drawn by Yannick Paquette, and not
Nice.
God, why can't I think of his name? Capullo. And
Is that the crazy Cuckoo Bananas one where it's all sorts of different stories sort of scattered throughout the future with different Bruce Waynes that need their minds rebooted?
In a sense, that's not the way I would have characterized it.
Okay.
Basically where you left Batman was Bruce Wayne is in a situation where he does not remember his life as Batman.
Right.
And there was a device, because Batman prepares for everything, that there is a way for him to retain the memories, to regain the memories. And through that process, you see different iterations of Bruce Wayne that may have happened leading up to where he is today. So some of them are in a sense cute, but in some ways, because this was a bit of a break in the action, I thought it was nice to not see Capullo there, because it's such a disruptive narrative in this particular issue. And Justice League, we're gearing through the end of the Darkseid War, and since there's a lot of suggestions that the Darkseid War ties into some of the events of Rebirth, I'm kind of looking for Easter eggs through that. But so far, it's been just a very solid superhero story. And Dark Knight 3 Master Race, there's a Green Lantern mini comic in there, and presents a very different take, not necessarily about Green Lantern, but about Hal Jordan. And I'm just going to leave it at that. I think the mini comics that you've had through DK3 The Master Race have in some ways been as interesting, if not more, than the main story. But effectively the antagonists are coming to the foreground in issue 3, and it's leading to a very, in some ways, unsettling confrontation about to happen. And then Titans Hunt, which is the book that presents the Teen Titans who never knew each other suddenly knowing each other again. It's unfortunately going to be an abbreviated run, originally set for 12 issues, but because of the events of Rebirth, it's now set for 8. But it's been a very solid book, and I'm sad to see it go in a sense because it's. I think Dan Abnett is a really good writer in terms of pace, and it has had a very steady pace, and I'm worried that with accelerating the story because of the commercial needs right now, that it might be to its detriment. Steve, I know you were reading Titans Hunt. How caught up are you on that?
I haven't read the last issue. I think is it number 6 or is it number 5?
It's number 5.
Number 5. I haven't read number 5 yet, but I am caught up with the other 4. It's great. I love it.
Mm-hmm.
I really, like you said, I'm kind of disappointed that it's not going to be the full 12 issues that we were promised, damn it. But the fact that they're actually going to take the storyline, they're going to take what's been happening to these characters and hopefully the characters themselves and have it flow hopefully smoothly into what's going to happen after Rebirth, where I think we're getting 2 different Titans books.
Yes, we are getting the Titans and the New Teen Titans.
Yeah, so...
one which appears to be Nightwing-led, another which appears to be Robin Damian Wayne-led.
Yeah, I don't know what to think about the Damian Wayne led team, but having a Nightwing-led team, that just brings me back to my favorite era of the Titans from like the 80s and 90s. Just that, and I know there's some ups and downs there, but just being able to read that and getting that kind of comfortable, familiar feel with the characters and with the stories, I can't discount that nostalgia, and that's what that Titans Hunt has been doing for me.
But I also say though, in some ways, yeah, there's that lace of nostalgia, but it's still a Dick Grayson that is consistent with what's going on in Grayson.
Oh gosh,
he has that voice. He just has that voice of that character down, of that guy who is the Batman you want to know instead of the one you get. He's the one who can crack a joke, and he's the one that has no problem about caring about you, and on top of it is a born leader.
Well, but in that same token, you also have the New 52 consistent version of Roy Harper, who's just like a douche.
And in his meta way, he kind of knows he's a mess. Which is, to me, that's almost a commentary, especially with some of the back and forth that you've seen with him and Cave Boy.
Mm-hmm.
I think Abnett has a bit of a smirk sometimes when he's writing this version of Roy Harper's dialogue.
Well, somebody's gotta, because I think the only expression I've had the entire time I've been reading anything with Roy Harper since 2011 has been, ugh.
Yeah. And I also think it's very interesting with the reactions about Rebirth and the titles that are coming. The one title consistently that you hear, why, is another version of Red Hood and the Outlaws.
What? Yeah, why?
Because it just, it didn't work. You tried, You know, you tried, it didn't work. You know, it didn't work as a tits and ass book. It didn't work as a buddy book. You know,
No.
it doesn't really work. I don't mind the concept of taking characters that have never really been together and mashing them together. Sometimes that can be gloriously weird, like the Champions in the 70s, where you had a team of Hercules, Ghost Rider, Black Widow, Angel, and Iceman. You know, what in hell, apart from an X connection, did any of those characters really have? And yet it kind of worked because, there was an enthusiasm on the creative teams that, hey, we're presented with this. It's going to be a West Coast team instead of an East Coast team, which Marvel's known for. We'll see what we can do. I don't think that's such a bad idea, but when it doesn't work, and I don't know why they just keep flying this, like, Arsenal Red Hood Starfire flag. I don't get it. I mean, somebody lose a bet, and this has to be a team for like 7-8 years until it's over.
We all lost the bet.
We all lost that bet, exactly. I think they wanted to have the characters in a book. Neither of them could, well, except for Starfire. Starfire got her own book, but they wanted to use them, didn't know how to use them, and figured they might as well throw them together.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. There's no other explanation for it that makes any sense. But what's interesting too, kind of on the downside of that, having Roy Harper being the team douche and Nightwing being consistent with Grayson, the one kind of odd woman out is definitely Donna Troy. And I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that unless they reveal somehow this is not the Donna Troy that we've been introduced to, the Donna Troy that came out of the Finch's version of Wonder Woman is terrible.
Woo, what a sticker.
And what I'm worried about is that the story might have to kind of make the excuse. And it hasn't happened yet. I haven't seen that yet, but I'm dreading them having to make the excuse of using that version of Donna Troy, or have to make some kind of explanation that, this isn't that Donna Troy. Mm-hmm. This is a Donna Troy that actually makes sense.
I agree with you part of the way, but I also think one thing that has been a mainstay of that character has been her own confusion about herself. You have had who is Wonder Girl, who is Donna Troy. These have been major Titan storylines. And it's kind of perfect that you have a Donna who's confused about her own history, in what is a title that's supposed to, in a sense, reintroduce this character in some fashion. So in some ways, I find that appropriate. I find it frustrating, but I find it appropriate. So.
Yeah, but the Donna Troy, at least the voice of the Donna Troy that's in the Finch's Wonder Woman is not the voice of the Donna Troy.
The voice of anybody that's in the Wonder Woman Finch is in the Finch Wonder Woman.
No, she's odd. She's brusque. She has absolutely no Donna Troy. The Donna Troy I know, no matter how confused and crazy she got, she was still the same. Concerned. I would even say motherly. She really was, because she'd always been kind of presented as the level-headed one who was the girl who could take care of the boys on the team and who could hold her own with the boys back in the 60s and 70s.
She was always the girl that every guy was in love with.
Yep.
But because of that, she ended up being a friend to all and a lover to none.
Yes.
And really interesting when they had the Titans, who was she with? An older man. Because she couldn't take these boys.
She was with Ginger Fro. Was who she was with.
Terry Long, yeah.
Terry was Ginger Fro.
Ginger Fro.
I mean, hey, don't get me wrong. Something about the '70s porn aesthetic that really kind of made Terry appeal to me visually.
And even though it was in '80s, the years aren't always a long break. Nightwing with that collar is disco era. Even though that was first in '84,
Oh yeah. They were always kind of a little bit slow to pick up the trends, but but yeah, I'm really excited. I will be, obviously both of the Teen Titan books are going to be on my pool list, but we'll see which one I want to keep.
Okay.
And it's going to be the Titans book.
Okay. Before we wrap this up and get to the Woofs of the Week, any other books you guys want to get in there? Or are we good?
I think I'm going to save my last book for the Wolf of the Week.
Okay. Matt, you're
Cool.
good covering everything you need?
I'm
okay.
good. Yeah.
All right. Well, this has been really entertaining. I in no way anticipated talking about Deathmate. I in no way anticipated talking about Neal Adams at length. But so you never know where these conversations are going to go. So we have come to the final segment of our show, which is the Woofs of the Week segment. This is when we spotlight something, be it a comic book or a movie or a prose book or anything else under the sun that we think you may enjoy. So, I'm just going to keep going with the order that we've been going through discussions here. Matt, what is your Woof of the Week?
I'm a little surprised that I am digging the new Stephen King TV series so much. It's 11/22/63. It's a time travel series with James Franco where he goes back to potentially stop the assassination of JFK. It's cool. It's like, I dig the look of it. It's got this like creepiness that sort of wanders into, scenes unexpectedly, suggesting that maybe this guy might not be able to change history. It's very interesting. I've seen 2 episodes so far, and my husband Jason has read the book, so he's sort of validating different parts of it as it's on, letting me know like what's the same and what's different, and it's cool. I recommend it.
Matt, I was wondering, how have you seen the episodes? Through Hulu?
No, it's airing on Super Channel here in Canada.
Okay.
So it just sort of, like, just by chance, I've spotted it a couple of times, and then I set up a PVR recording rule.
Okay. Because I think, Steve, it's just on Hulu for us right now?
Yeah, it's only airing on Hulu streaming, so if you don't have access to Hulu in the US, you can't watch it otherwise. But that's really interesting that it's actually airing, on live TV in Canada.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And they're not even doing one of those situations where the first episode airs through various platforms like they did with Powers with PlayStation. It's like you have to have the streaming.
Yeah, well, no, I mean, Powers on PlayStation, you only had that option when it first came out. And then once the season was over, that it was able to, they brought it to other platforms. But with, 11, I'm going to get it wrong, 11/22/63.
That's right.
Yeah, they're only, it's only available in the US right now on Hulu.
Okay.
So, but you can always stream Hulu online for free, or if you have Hulu Plus. You can also you can stream it with fewer commercials or no commercials.
Because we have Hulu on our TV, but I think it just might be the stream, the basic stream. So I'll have to investigate that, because that was one of those shows that has me written all over it. And if I wasn't so busy, I probably would have nagged the other half to download them, even if it was through illicit sources.
I'll say this about it. It gets the time travel thing right, like the look and feel of the era, much better than Legends of Tomorrow.
Okay.
Go watch them close together, because you'll just look at Legends of Tomorrow and go, that just looks like today. Like, you haven't done anything to make that look old.
Okay, Steve, what is your Woof of the Week?
Well, like I said, I kind of wanted to talk about a particular comic book. Although this stretches the idea of a comic book, like a floppy, because this is more of like a giant tome in nice fantagraphic style. I'm talking, of course, about Unlovable by Esther Pearl Watson, and you kind of also have to give credit to the girl who wrote the diary that this whole book series is based on, a girl that Esther calls Tammy. Obviously, it's not her real name, but just some background on this book is that it was based on a diary that Esther had found in the ladies' room at a truck stop in Texas. And she saw it. She was just immediately just intrigued by it, and she ran off with it. And her story that she tells is that she grabbed the book, hid it under her shirt, ran to her husband, and said, "Gun it, Mark, we gotta go." Like she had just found some kind of rare treasure, which it actually turns out to be. And basically, Unlovable's about this girl named Tammy. And it's told in the style of her daily diary. And it's just entries that are, for the most part, basic, boring, everyday things that a girl in high school might write about. Her clothes, whether she feels fat, her hair is not pretty enough. She talks about her friends and her family and getting chili cheese fries. And it's the art is done in a very interesting style. Esther Poole Watson, she has it's almost like it's a very zine look, which isn't a surprise because she and her husband were very heavy into the zine scene in, I believe, the 80s and the 90s. But it's not pretty, and I don't say that in a negative way. It's a book that kind of highlights the ugliness, as well as the mediocrity that a teenage girl growing up in the 80s might experience in her everyday life. And, her friends are mostly using her, and you just want to reach through the pages and just shake her grab her by the shoulders and shake her and say, this is not, like, these are not good people. You are not making good choices. What is wrong with you? And that's the point. I mean, this is a real person that this is based on, and I'm not sure how much of it is edited. But through Esther's art and just the words that are on the page, you feel like you've just stolen some girl's diary and are sneaking a peek. And for all the ugly warts that can come out of a teenage girl's pen onto paper, this really highlights all of them. And of course, if you're nostalgic for the 80s, which if you're reading something like this, you would wonder why you were ever nostalgic for the 80s. This is just a perfect book. The art fits it so much. There's a bit of adolescence to the way that Esther draws it, but also a lot of maturity that comes out, because obviously this is a woman who identifies with Tammy, and kind of draws from her own experience when creating a lot of these panels. It's told a little bit differently. Each page is one panel as opposed to, a series of panels normally as comic style. And the book, of course, is bound beautifully. Fantagraphics did an amazing job. There's lots of glitter all over the hardcover in many different ways. And you can actually buy the first 2 volumes, like I did, in a 2-volume set with a very cool slipcover. It's honestly fantastic and amazing. I really do recommend it if you can find it. It's a little bit pricey, but check it out. Unlovable by Esther Pearl Watson.
Okay. What is the price point on that?
The individual volumes themselves, I believe they go for about $20 a piece. And if you buy the 2-volume set, it's about $40.
Okay.
At most retailers. There is a 3rd volume as well that just came out probably about 2 years ago. That one has not been added to like a slipcover, so you can get the first 2 volumes with the slipcover and then the 3rd volume separate.
Yeah, because I remember us talking about this off mic at this point a couple months ago, I think.
Mm.
And just the backstory to this book is just amazing.
Oh, it is. And the art, it's not to everybody's taste, but if you read a lot of the especially independent female cartoonists, Linda Barry, if you like Linda Barry, you will love the art for this book. It's funny, it's tortured, and it's banal, but it is fantastic, and it's just a really intriguing read.
Okay.
So.
All right. Well, my Woof of the Week is music-based. The date that we are recording this is March 2nd, and this would have been Karen Carpenter's 66th birthday. Karen Carpenter was the singer of the Carpenters, the legendary soft rock act from the 70s. And I'm throwing something back to the 90s. I am nostalgic for something from the 90s. They still have these albums out. They still have these tribute albums out, but there isn't, just like any record, there isn't a sense of event around tribute albums like you had in the 90s, with just some that, just sold crazy amounts, like Common Threads based around the Eagles and some others. So I am going to recommend for my Wolf of the Week an album that came out in 1994 called If I Were a Carpenter. And this was 14 acts of the day, including American Music Club, Shonen Knife, some acts I really can't stand, like the Cranberries. But it's a very nice collection of covers of Carpenter songs. Now, the Carpenters didn't write most of their material. They were very good at selecting songs that fit Karen's voice, and through that they became standards, and these are the interpretations of their standards by acts that were, probably at their zenith in 1994. One track in particular is probably, if not my favorite cover of all time, is probably vying for it, which is Hurting Each Other by Jonette Napolitano of Concrete Blonde, with her then husband, who unfortunately has since passed away, Mark Moreland of Wall of Voodoo. And they had a very tempestuous relationship, and you can hear it in their cover of Hurting Each Other. I mean, the lyrics just, it's almost uncomfortable listening to this song if you know that these were two people who were very much in love, but because of one of the parties' problems with substance abuse and drinking, that it was always a frayed relationship. That it is set against a backdrop of an act that is connected with something much lighter. It just gives it a lot of emotional heft. Just apart from that, it's a very good covers album, so that's mine. If you want to buy it new on Amazon, you're going to pay a pretty penny at $24.24, but if you want it used, you can get it as low as a cent. So that is my pick, Wolf of the Week, from A&M Records, If I Were a Carpenter, Various Artists from 1994. Well, we're wrapping this one up. Again, we are the Comic Book Bears Podcast. You can find us on the Facebook as Comic Book Bears Podcast. You can find us on the Twitter and the Tumblr and Instagram as Comic Book Bears. If you want to reach out to us for something, send us an email, and you can do so by addressing that to comicbookbears@gmail.com. We are proudly part of the Earth 2 Podcast Network. You can find us through the Earth 2 Network feeds and also through our own feed. Get us on iTunes, get us on Stitcher Radio, get us on Podbean. We'll be back next week. So until then, I'm Billy Z.
I'm Steve Morey.
And I'm Matt Broussard.
You're going to hear Wolf and an Explosion. Take care, everyone.
Wolf!